Interested in learning about wine, but not sure where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I'm your host, Haley Bowman, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm a wine enthusiast turned wine educator and founder of the Seattle-based wine tasting business, Cork and Fizz. It is my goal to build your confidence in wine by making it approachable and lots of fun. You can expect to learn everything from how to describe your favorite wine to what to pair with dinner tonight, and so much more. Whether you're a casual wine sipper or a total cork dork like myself, this podcast is for you. So grab yourself a glass and let's dive in. I have a very special interview for you today. I'll be talking to Sidney Rice and Tim Lenihan, the founders of Dossier Wines. Dossier is a Washington-based winery that offers a modern approach to luxury wine, inspired by the region's great potential, the incredible talent, and distinctive terroir here in Washington. Their goal is to create an elevated and engaging experience for sophisticated wine enthusiasts. And you know I love a good wine experience. Now, while you may know Sidney from his success in the NFL, he played for the Minnesota Vikings and the Seattle Seahawks. Following his football days, he has become one of the most active investors and entrepreneurs in the Pacific Northwest. Sidney brings an incredible wine palate, a unique business perspective, and a drive to create unique experiences for Dossier guests. As for Tim, Dossier is a return to his roots. He grew up in Yakima and lived in Walla Walla for 6 years during his college days. Some of his lifelong friends are still in Walla Walla, and coming back to the area to join the wine industry was always his dream. 20 years later, Tim is drawing on his real estate business and construction background to help build Dossier from the ground up. All right, now you know what Dossier is. Let's get to the interview. Thank you guys so much for joining me for this interview. Yeah. Really excited to learn more about Dossier and about you too.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we I'll get started with the easy part of just, you want to tell me a little bit more about who each of you are and what you do?
Well, my name is Sidney, the other half of Dossier, along with Tim. Previously played football for about 7 years, 4 years in Minnesota, 3 years with the Seattle Seahawks. Retired with the Seahawks after we won the Super Bowl and decided to make Washington State my home. So been here about 12 years now. Invest in a little technology, real estate, and Dossier Wine.
Exciting. I love it.
I'm the other half, and I grew up in Eastern Washington and lived in Walla Walla for a long, long time. And but I lived over here in Seattle for the past 20 years, and always wanted to kind of go back to Walla Walla. I went to Whitman down in Walla Walla, and wanted to get back to it, and here we are. So
nice, I like it. So why don't we start, Tim? Since you were kind of talking about Walla Walla, I'm guessing that has maybe a little bit of, interest in what originally sparked your interest in wine.
Yeah.
Were there other things as well? Do you want to dive into that a little bit?
It was kind of crazy because, back in the day, I started Whitman in 1999, and that was with when, there's probably 10, 12 wineries back there. There's probably more, and I'll be corrected by somebody that says, there was 32, but at the time, it didn't feel like there was many, and the guys that were drinking, and the guys and gals that were drinking wine that I knew were, buying it at Safeway, and it was kind of, bottom of the rung type of stuff. So, but I enjoyed working in restaurants, and after I graduated, ended up working at a place called 26 Bricks, which was like a high-end French restaurant in Walla Walla for the kind of the OG Walla Walla crowd, and that's where I met a lot of the winemakers. Met people who actually ended up in my wedding, and when I left, it was, all those guys were kind of coming up and becoming these massively successful, kind of cult winemakers, and always thought like, oh my gosh, it'd be so amazing to go back there in some sort of fashion. I just didn't know what that looked like. And fast forward 20 years, and Sidney and I were drinking a lot of wine during COVID, and he was like, hey, like I'd love to do like a wine project. And I was like, oh my God, like I've always wanted to do that. Let's actually start kind of thinking this through. So that's kind of the background, how we ended up getting things going on our end.
It's absolutely wild to me how, like, when I think of Walla Walla, all you can think of is all the wineries. But yeah, just, 20 years ago, there was barely anything there. I talked to another winemaker I think from Gramercy Cellars, who said the same thing. He grew up in the area and like wine was just not a big thing at that time. And in just 20 years, it's just absolutely blown up, which is just so cool.
Yeah.
All right. So Sidney, I have to ask you, what made you write? You're like, okay, background in football. You maybe did a little investing in tech. What kind of sparked that interest in wine for you?
Well, I was drinking a ton of wine right before the pandemic and posting it on my social media and just randomly had a bunch of people start sending me wine. So I ended up tasting over like 300 different bottles of wine. And then that's when Tim jumped in and he didn't approve of the wines I was drinking. It's like, hey, you live in Washington State. You got to stop drinking all of this mess. So that's when he started bringing some stuff over, some Washington State wines, which I was already introduced to, but he brought even more that I didn't even know about, and felt like it was something great that we could do something really good here. We drank all kinds of wines, and we still do, from around the world, just to develop our palates and get to a certain point on the wine varietals and the things that we want to do.
Yeah. Oh, that's so fun. I think the thing about wine that's so cool is, yeah, you could keep tasting wines from around the world and you'll never taste them all, and you'll keep being introduced to new things. And yeah, it's funny too. You're like, I just got all this wine sent to me. Like, why wouldn't I get into wine then?
Yeah.
I have all these options to try. So now I basically want to put the two stories together. How did you two connect and find each other? And I know, Tim, you kind of touched on a little bit of the starting a Dossier, but do you want to go a little bit deeper of, like how you two connected and how Dossier was born?
Yeah. So like our Sydney's involved with a lot of different companies. And one of my companies is a development firm that I own, like a construction firm. And so he and I were discussing some of the projects we had, and then COVID just shut it all down. And so we were, he was posting a bunch of, wines on his Instagram, of California wines. And literally I was giving him a hard time about, like there are more wines than California wines in this world. So we ended up getting together, tasting some incredible wines. I mean, all over, the world. And that's kind of with what, started this whole thing. I think one of the things that I always go back to when we said hey, let's start down this path was, I don't want it to be about my playing career. I want to be about the wine. Right. And it's always kind of, stuck in the back of my head. And so that allowed us to, interview, like if we're going to do this, like we really got to find the right person that, fits with what we're looking for, is flexible, we get along with, and at the end of the day makes wine, incredible wine, but that we really, really enjoy. So we interviewed winemakers from Napa all the way up to Walla Walla, and ended up settling on our winemaker, Bill Nervin from Rasa Vineyards, master wine, one of 400 in the world with that designation, but one of only 24 that is practicing making wine at the end of the day. So his style matched really, really well with our style. And he was also able to just listen with us and learn with us and grow. And because we're by no means experts in anything and everything, wine, but we're sponges right now. We're trying to learn, and we're trying to understand why certain things work that way. And so he's been really, really helpful in just kind of guiding that process with us.
Yeah. We need to talk about Bill more, because when I found that connection, I got very excited. I know another winery that he's worked with, and I love their wines. So I definitely would love to talk about him more. But I also wanted to hit on something you mentioned, that like you didn't want the winery or all of it to be about, Sidney's like football career, right? Because that's the first thing people think of. And I really wanted to ask, because this is something I've noticed in the wine world of like, people tend to look down on celebrity owned wines and celebrity and pro athletes. And I think it's interesting because when I talk to winemakers, so many of them have started somewhere else than the wine world. And we're like so okay with like, oh yeah, you started in real estate, or you started in this, and that makes sense. You fell in love with wine and you loved it and now you're doing it. But like when celebrities do it for some reason, we're like, oh no, you couldn't have possibly fallen in love with wine and wanted to do that. So I'm curious, have you guys noticed this at all in the wine world, and with like that kind of celebrity take, and what's your take on it?
Definitely. You see a lot of people that's going into wine nowadays, even more so. But you have quite a few people who've done it and done it well. Bledsoe with Double Back, Dan Marino with Passing Time, Charles Woodson with Intercept. You have Channing Frye with Chosen Family, CJ McCullum. You have like a lot of guys that do it and do it right. But then you also have those other guys who just have a lot of money and they can buy all of these amazing wines and they drink wine and then they want to start a label. But I don't think it's a passion for some of them. So I could see where some of the people come from. And we actually had a situation like that when we first started off where somebody was like, oh, another celebrity wine. We really don't want to try it. So they ended up trying it and then they came back and apologized, which is really funny. But as Tim mentioned, I didn't want it to be about football. It's something I really love, passionate about, and that I enjoy doing. And I feel like Washington State is just scratching the surface, even though like we've been on the map for quite some time. We still haven't been getting the respect that we need when it comes to wine. And that's what it's all about for Tim and I, creating something really special to continue to bring Washington State to the forefront of wine.
Oh, absolutely. It's like people in Washington know that Washington State is great. Now we just need to like convince the rest of the world and like get it out there, right? Not even convince, just have them taste the wine. And that will be enough where they're like, oh crap, yeah, Washington can really make great wine. I think you said that very well. I think, yeah, there's a lot of like, it depends on like what you do at the winery, right? Because you're right. If you just like use money to buy a label, put your name on something, that's very different than what it sounds like you guys do. And I want to dive into that more later too, of like how involved you are and what it means to you and, you know, how you go about the process. Before we get into that, I did want to ask about one thing, Sidney, for you as one of, you know, few Black winery owners in Washington and even just in the US and in the world. How has it impacted how you see the wine world and how you go about this?
I mean, it is very rare. I think we only have about 2 in the state of Washington, if I'm not mistaken. And it's something that more awareness needs to be brought to, because I'm sure it's more people of color that enjoy wine and drink wine. And a lot of the times, it's possibly they feel like it's not a place for them to be in the winemaking. But I feel if you're passionate about it and it's something you love, why not give it a shot? So I just want to continue to, try to be one of those people to step out of my norm and like go for things that I'm passionate about, whether other people are doing it or not.
Yeah. I find that one thing, like at least, and this happened with like women in the wine world as well, is like first you need the representation, right? You need to see somebody who looks like you doing it and be like, yeah, I can like that. I can do that too. And then I feel like you need the means. And so much of the wine world I've noticed is very much like, well, my family was in it, so it was easy for me to get into it, right? Or we have this joke, and I'm sure you guys have heard this as well, is like, how do you make a small fortune in wine? Well, you start with a large fortune, right? Because it is not always a place where you can gain wealth and money. And sometimes it helps to have that. And so I was curious, is it just the connection between the sports? And then I want to go into Dossier deeper. Do you think coming from a background of professional sports where you had like a chance to build wealth helped you find your place in the wine world?
I don't think necessarily. I fell in love with it because I was drinking wines, and it wasn't the expensive wines, because when I first started, I didn't know much about it. So I was just drinking the 20, 30, $40 bottles that I found, asking a couple of friends what they like. And that's how I got into it.
Great. So yeah, it's not necessary. You just, start with the wines that you can afford and go from there, right?
You got to start somewhere at the point.
Exactly. So coming back to Dossier, I want to talk about the name because I'm very curious on where that came from. How did you choose the name? Was it a challenge? Did you go through a bunch of things? Like how did Dossier come to be?
I mean, any naming, of a winery is difficult, right? I mean, because it is, so-and-so's got this or so-and-so's got that. And it's a very, very frustrating process. But I mean, even before that, it's also just trying to figure out with what is true between who you and your partner are, like between who Sidney and I are, like what really kind of speaks to with what we're trying to do, as well as just trying to find something that match with in our heads with what the wine in the winery should look like, right? And so to us, like we are actively involved, right, with the two of us, with our winemaker and with our GM Brandon Kubrock, who used to own a winery, still owns a barrel sales company. And so like a dossier is it's a file, right? It's a file of information that you collect. And in a way, like that's what we're taking all of our different, things that we know and our tastes and with, our knowledge and putting that into one bottle of wine. Right. And, some people can kind of laugh at it and kind of, say like, oh, it's kind of hokey. But at the end of the day, like it's not, I think the main point for us is that, the winemaker or Billow is not just saying like, hey, here's your wine, go off and sell it. We're actively involved in many, many different parts of the business right now. And so I think that's something it rings true to us. And that's kind of how we came up with the name. So
I like it. Who came up with the original, the word for it? I'm curious. Was it either one of you, or was it kind of like a brainstorm?
It's a French word, but we went through, what do you say, Tim, 100 different names.
yeah. It's
Stressful.
yeah, it's a special one for us because the naming process is beyond frustrating. So
It's so hard. I can imagine. People always ask me too about Cork and Fizz, and I'm like, yeah, we just kind of like, my husband and I thought we were on like a little vacation in the woods in Seattle in October. We thought we'd hike, but I don't know what we were thinking about Seattle in October. It just rained all weekend. So we hung out and just kind of, you make that huge list and you keep going through and you're like, because it's so much, you want people to get like a certain feel from your name and when they see it and when they think of it. And that's exactly what we're going to be known as for a while. And so I like that you went with like a French name to kind of pull in that like old world feel, and I feel like that makes the at least to me it feels like the wine is a little more higher end almost of adding that little French touch, but then the meaning behind it is really fun too, like just putting everything that all these different backgrounds and thoughts and things into the wine. I feel like that's really great. So I was gonna save this drinking of the wine to last because I have so many questions I want to ask you, but I can't keep staring at this wine and not taste it. So maybe we can start off. I dropped off. I have the Viognier, the Rosé, and a red blend. So maybe we can start with talking about the Viognier.
Yeah.
First off, as a white wine, Viognier, not super popular. I think it's becoming more popular, which I love. But what made you guys pick Viognier as one of your, is it the only white that you guys do, or do you guys have another white, right?
Yeah, we've got a Sauvignon Blanc that we do. And so we kind of have like two different kind of tiers. So like the Dossier Wine Collective is with what we call the company. And that is meant to show that there's beyond just, like a couple brands. Like there will be a handful of other projects and, like Pinot projects, potentially like a Champagne project. But right now we've got two different kind of tiers of wines. The first tier we call our core brand, which is our Rosé, our Sauvignon Blanc, and one of our red blends, right? And those are the ones that you'll see in the restaurants, you'll see kind of out and about. But then the next one is the flagship brand, which is the ones that we sought to go after when we created the winery. And the Viognier, in our opinion, of like, what white wine has a little bit more elevated type of experience. And really at the end of the day, you got Roussanne, you got Chardonnay, you got Viognier, right? And between Sidney and I think we both feel kind of like, Chardonnay's kind of had its day, it's had its time. And, so that really leaves in our minds Viognier, right? And if done correctly, it can be one of the most amazing wines you can have out there. And, I think for us, it's always hard because, this is our first release to the public, right? We're going to our third harvest right now. And each year the vineyards get better and better and better that we're able to get, fruit from. And this Viognier it's awesome. The hardest part about Viognier is watching people drink Viognier out of teeny little white wine glasses. And it kills my soul because this wine is like, the bigger the glass you have, the more expressive it is. And so when people are tasting, they're like, yeah, it's really nice. I'm like, no. Like you need to buy like better glasses, to be able to enjoy these wines a little bit better. But,
So I shouldn't let you see the little tasting glasses.
No, well, I mean, it's okay. Now you can later on Corv and enjoy a bigger glass with it. So
absolutely. I love Viognier. It's definitely one of my favorites. And I love that it's like you guys said, it was like you wanted something that could give a little more. It packs a punch in such a really lovely way. And that connection I was thinking of, that Billow Nerone that worked with, I believe he worked with Delmas for a little bit, Delmas winery. And so I've had Brooke on here and I've had their Viognier and it's lovely. And so I can definitely kind of see the connection. They're definitely still two different wines, but you can tell that like this had like the hand of a very talented winemaker working on it. So now that we have it, we're sipping on it. I'm curious, tell me, what do you guys taste and smell? And what is it about this wine that makes you really excited to share it?
Lots of tropical fruit, with the minerality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that minerality, like wet rocks. I always tell people, some people think like minerality in wine is made up. I'm like, no, just think of the smell of like by a waterfall or after it's rained, like, and it's such a lovely smell.
Yeah, I mean, and I think for us, like one of the biggest things why we partnered with Billow was because of his style of winemaking. And when you taste that Viognier, when you taste our other wines, you start to pick up on his style. And to us, I mean, like it's all about texture, right? It's all about balance. And that wine, beyond being the tropical notes, beyond being the minerality that you pick up on it, it's such a balanced wine. And the texture, it's sexy. Like it's just like that is like that's when I mean, at the end of the day, like we created this winery because we want to be able to drink our own wines, and like all those wines I could drink, like, and it's not just because like I think they're great, but I mean, like it's legitimately like that's the type of wine drinking that I like, right? And I think that there's also a lot of younger folks who appreciate that type of kind of a little more fruit forward, a little bit easier drinking right out of the box, or out of the bottle, not out of the box. But at the end of the day, we could have boxes, but there's, to us, like, I think it's always a balance. Like the downside for a lot of folks is that if it's too easy drinking out of the gate, it might not last a long time to be able to age. But for us, it's like you can kind of have the best of both worlds. And these wines can go for, in some of our reds, like 20, 25 years pretty easily. And then on the whites, like, easily hang on for 10 years and really enjoy that. So I think it's showing that, the winemaking in Washington State is getting better and better, and is able to use the fruit in a better way than it has been in the past. Not to say it was bad in the past, but it's just, these wines are going to last a little bit longer than they did 10, 20 years ago at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's something that's powerful about Washington wine. I've heard that from many other people, that the coolest thing about Washington wine is that the way our climate is and how the grapes are grown, they can ripen really well. So you can produce these wines that are drinkable now, right? You like the early drinking, but you can also save it for 20 years and it's still just as great. And that, like, I don't know, maybe that's like our little leg up over California. Like so many California wines, you either have a ageable wine that you shouldn't touch for 20 years, or you have the thing that like drink it in the first year or else it's, no good. And
Totally.
So I definitely get this out of the Viognier. So it does seem like a little bit of oak contact. It has a little bit of that kind of nice smoothness without being, it's not buttery, right? That's not what it is. It's just like this very nice, powerful, smooth texture to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh no, aged 14 months in French oak,
Okay.
so French oak, and about 40% new oak.
Okay. Yeah. You can definitely, you taste it without it being overpowering.
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that we've learned is just the proper incorporation of oak can really make or break a lot of these wines. And I mean, Billow's a master of oak incorporation with when it comes down to it. Some of these wines are way more oaked than you think, but it's because like we're buying very, very high end barrels to be able to kind of do that with, right? And certain barrels will go with certain vineyards better than other barrels will in certain varietals. And so that's, I think the biggest thing that Sidney and I have learned is just that the science and the kind of the magic behind how you incorporate barrels into your wines, besides just new oak gets thrown onto it. Like, there's a fair amount of thought, behind it.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit about, you're working with a winemaker, Bill Navarone, the wonderful, very talented winemaker in Walla Walla. So, but you two are the founders of Dossier, and I'm very curious to learn more about what does that mean that you do? Because, someone like me, I would love to get more involved with wine. I don't know if I'll ever be a winemaker one day, but it'd be fun to, dive more into it. So I'm curious, like, what does your involvement in Dossier look like? Is it all business? Are you involved in the creation of the wine? Do you plan on being more involved in the future? There's a lot of questions, but I'm just curious.
I think we're as involved as it gets. We're from the ground up, the labels, the bands you see around the neck of the bottle, absolutely everything. When it comes to the winemaking, we're there with Billow. Every time it's a blending done, we talk about the tweakings, what we're going to do, what we're going to change. So, I mean, if it's any more we can do, Tim, I'll be gray here pretty fast.
Yeah, we are all, I mean, it is a busy business. And, fortunately we've got Brandon, our GM down in Walla Walla that kind of, is the one that is able to kind of, handle the business down there and run a lot of the fruit. Right now, he's literally running out to go grab, I think, our Malbec from Kiona.
Ooh, okay.
Right now. And, that allows us to, to be able to, having the right people at the end of the day for any business is the most important piece. And I think that we've got an amazing team that we've put together in pretty short notice, right, to do a lot of business. So Sidney and I, pretty much really kind of run a lot of the business on the west side over here. And, the events, like, we've this Saturday or this Sunday, we're pouring at 4 different locations in the upper club area at the Seahawks games. All of our wines are in the suites as well. So if you're there, you can, press the suite owner to order some more of the wines. But, we kind of all have our little roles, and we're about as actively involved as it comes with running this business.
Cool. I love it. Do you ever find yourself standing in front of the wine aisle at the grocery store, feeling completely lost and overwhelmed? Don't worry, you're not alone. But what if I told you that I have a way to transform the wine aisle from overwhelming into an endless sea of joy and discovery? And it involves drinking wine and joining the most welcoming and fun community. In my Court Crew Virtual Tasting Club, we're all about exploring new and exciting wines in a fun and supportive community. No more feeling intimidated or stuck in a rut of buying the same bottle of wine. Each month, we explore 2 new wines, so you can broaden your palate and explore new flavors. Not only will we taste these wines together, but we'll learn about where the wines come from, essentially traveling the world all through the wine in our glass. Come join the Court Crew, and you'll have the opportunity to taste new wines, meet winemakers and other wine professionals, and connect with like-minded wine lovers from all over the world. Imagine the joy of discovering a new favorite wine and being able to confidently choose a bottle that you know you'll love. So, why not join us? Head to my website at corkandfizz.com/thecourtcrew to sign up. And don't forget to use code WINE101 to get your first month free. And now, back to the show. So talking about, I want to go into the experience because I noticed a key focus, when you're reading about Dossier and when I was learning and doing the research, you want to create this really engaging and unique experience for wine drinkers. And first of all, that's amazing. I think, wine is so much more than just a drink, right? It is an experience. And so getting to dive into that. So can you tell us a little bit more about, what does that mean to you to have it be more than, it's more than just a drink, it's an experience. And how does that set Dossier apart from other wineries?
Yeah, I mean, selfishly, like when you've tasted, around Washington State to all the different, like wineries that you go, like you pick up on things that you like, things that you don't like. And, so moving forward for us, I think the main focus is, obviously we want to make world-class wine. And regardless if you're buying our $200 bottle or our, $28 bottle, you should still be able to feel included, right? And you should still be able to feel like, you're a part of what's going on. And our events, I think that people are craving more events and things to do. I think COVID really messed us up pretty good in terms of getting out and engaging. And so that's one of our big focuses is the events we have are amazing. They're definitely like much more elevated experiences. Like we had one at the Nest Hotel, at a Thompson Hotel on the rooftop, and that was 285 people sold out. It was a party. It was great. And so, I think even kind of continuing beyond that, I think that a lot of people who sign up on our wine club that we have, that's one of the things we tell them about. Besides, hey, you just get the chance to buy the wine. Like this is an opportunity for you to be able to engage with us at these different events and places we want you to come to. And so, because I think a lot of these cult wineries, the thing that they're missing is that, especially with the younger generation coming up, is that, hey, I can go buy your wine anywhere, right? And so what makes me want to join your wine club and do cool things with you as part of that? So that's always in the back of our head, is that, that's really with what we're finding people want and how we are able to stay engaged with our clients. Because at a certain point, if you're not doing those events, you're not staying engaged, and the retention of your clients is going to fall off at that point.
Definitely. I think and I know you guys are working on building a winery in Walla Walla. That's coming soon, right? Is that, you want to tell me a little bit more about the tasting room, I should say? And, do you plan on doing are events going to be a key focus there as well, along with the tastings?
Yeah, that's Go back to your question of like, what roles do you have? Like that role of remodeling the tasting room is all consuming right
Yeah.
now. Because we are on a trajectory to try and, get it finished up by fall release weekend and the first weekend in November. And it is an amazing, amazing tasting room. It's an amazing space. We are trying to have it be a much more luxurious experience besides just walking up to a bar and asking for the next pour that's there. Like this should be feeling like it's a place you want to hang out. And it's about 2,500 square feet, so it's a little bit larger than some of the tasting rooms downtown. But then up above, we'll have like our own personal residence that we'll be able to like rent out to club members and stuff like that, kind of like a New York loft style type of thing. And then we also bought a building, a warehouse down there that we're hoping to move into in the next probably about year and a half, which will allow Billow, our brands, any other brands that he makes wine for, to be all in one building. Because right now we're kind of spread between a handful of different buildings. And the building where we're at right now is up to a point where it needs to be updated and kind of needs some more of the state of the art equipment. And so that was one of the things that Sidney and I picked up on when we were down in Napa, was that there's a business model that's not as necessarily focused on vineyards, but more on the real estate piece of it. And how do you do that to really help you get your business up and running. And for us, it was being able to kind of control our spaces and with where the wine's being made.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There's, wine is like, it's the vineyard and it's the grapes, but you also, you have to take into account that part. And I really, really appreciate the thought that you guys have been putting into like, what value can you bring, right, with the wine club, and then also visiting the tasting room, because like I visit tasting rooms to learn about the wine, right? Because like you said, I could buy wine, online or anywhere, right? And like, what's the reason I'm going to visit or connect? And you guys, especially on Instagram, I love seeing all of the, the events and what you share out those. And it just makes me want to like try more of Dossier. And I feel like other wineries will be following in your footsteps and kind of following that model as well.
Well, that's okay. It's okay for you to want to try more Dossier. That's the whole point. So.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so I think we should try a second wine. I have a rosé here. This is your rosé of Syrah, and this you said was part of. So this is part of like the original collection, the rosé. Was this something you knew from the get-go? You guys needed a rosé. I'm very curious because some winemakers don't love rosé. They're like, it's hard to make and people want it for cheap. But then you also have this, like, some people think rosé is always sweet, which is not true. There are really great rosés. So what did you do to make, this rosé special for you guys?
This one's all Sid. I mean, he drinks more rosé than I do. So
Now, I didn't drink a ton of rosé before we started this project. And I was one of the people that thought it was either too sweet or too bland. But having a world-class winemaker in Billow and some great palates, he was able to create something really special with our 21 rosé, which happened to be one of my favorites. And the only difference between the 21 and the 22 rosé that you're having now is the 22 rosé was aged 6 months in concrete. And we found out that the concrete gives it like a little more character, sharper notes, a little more minerality, and then the fruit just pops at the end of it. So we're super excited about this one. Very nice and clean. Just got 94 points from Wine Enthusiasts on this one.
Wow. Yeah, that's impressive. My first taste of it was it's funny because it's like one of those beautiful, just like pale, almost like salmon kind of colors. It's just got that beautiful orange color. And like, typically these will be like, I really enjoy that rosé that's actually more mineral and driven. And this definitely has it, but like, it has exactly what you said with that pop of fruit. It was just an explosion. And it's like, how do you get that in a rosé? It's very impressive. And you can tell that you put the time into making this not just a, sip all summer rosé, which you should, but you should also like really enjoy it.
The two crazy things about that wine is that we use Syrah to make that rosé. Mm-hmm. So like not a lot of folks are using the Syrah. When we're doing the actual pressing of it and the making of it, like there's definitely the timing and how you're kind of going about creating it is definitely different than a lot of other rosé grapes that people use out there. But the second piece on this that's really crazy is that the time of year that we sold more rosé than the summertime was November and Thanksgiving. And because people, I think that what we're finding is that people want something that's refreshing, but they still want something that goes well with the food. And drinking a heavy cab on a Thanksgiving meal, it's like, or like in the prep hours before, it's like, it's just a lot. right? And so like you're
Yes.
tired, you're exhausted, you're like, oh my God, I've been cooking all day long. Like, and it like ends up like pairing like amazing with literally everything that is a turkey, like a Thanksgiving meal. And so those are the things you kind of pick up on as the business is going along is where are you finding different kind of, pops of excitement and engagement that you weren't anticipating? That was one of them, for sure.
Now that I taste it again, I'm like, oh wow, that does go really well. Really well
Yeah.
with Thanksgiving.
Tim's making me hungry. I'm ready for a turkey now.
Right? You're like, please, like the stuffing, the everything. It is really great. And I do love a good rosé of Syrah, and especially Syrah. I don't know. I'm kind of in the camp that I think Washington's top grape and the top wine is Syrah. I think we do great cab, but I think like the thing that would set us apart from other areas is the amazing Syrah that we can make here in Washington.
Yeah. Yeah. It is an interesting, because if we were to plant anything, it wouldn't be Syrah, it'd be Cabernet and Sauvignon Blanc.
Okay.
And because I think in the end of the day, I mean, global warming is a big thing that Sidney and I talk about quite a bit. And, with where the trends with what the next generation of wine tasters, wants to drink. And that's where our focus has always been on the Cabernet and the Sauvignon Blanc with what we think is going to be the biggest growth area in Washington State for those varietals.
No, you're not wrong. I definitely.
We do have a Syrah. We do have.
Oh
a
yes,
Syrah.
no, I've seen the Syrah. It is great.
Yeah.
Like I said, like I'm kind of we're in a smaller little camp of Syrah lovers. I do love a good cab, but I think I also have a harder time with cab because like you just know there's so many out there that aren't great, and so like I tend to not reach for it as much because I have to trust that I know, right? If it's like comes from a winery that I know and I know they're really putting the work in, then it's super exciting. It's just like it's kind of like that Chardonnay game of like, was it? But it's like, no, it still can be beautiful. And yeah, I think that's a great point of like global warming, like as Washington does have that benefit of being, further north. So a lot of areas in California might end up being a little overly punchy, overly fruity, where here in Washington you can find that good balance.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Okay, so I have one last question before I get to my little speed round, where it's just like little favorites I put at the end. So it's not like I expect you to answer really fast. I just call it a speed round, as in like it's 5 quick questions. But Dossier calls itself, you guys want to be known as like a luxury wine brand, but at the same time, there's a focus on this being approachable, right? And so how do you find the balance with, I think it's very possible. I just think a lot of people see luxury and go, oh, that means expensive, right? And so and then they can't get into it. So how do you find the balance between luxury and approachability when it comes to wine?
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, I think that in any luxury type of setting is that people still want to be able to feel like, and there's plenty of people in Washington State that have the funds to be able to enjoy high-end wine, and most of our wine is high-end wine. Like anything over $30 is a high-end wine, right? And so for us, though, I think that it's more about how like you make your clients feel, right? And how you make our customers feel. And that like, there are folks who can buy the crazy high end wines of ours. There are folks who can buy the lower end stuff. And like for us, we want them to feel like they're included in any of that. So if they're part of our 3-bottle, wine club, or their 6-bottle wine club or 12-bottle wine club, like it doesn't matter to us, right? But like you should still feel that, how we're engaging with you, it makes you feel appreciated. And I don't know how many times I've been to like wineries over the years that like, we've been on the list for years and years and years. And like, you start to feel like, do they even really care about who I am and with what they're doing? And that always sticks in the back of our brains of what can we do to kind of make that, you still want to feel like you can buy a nice product, be it a bag or be it a dress or be it a bottle of wine. And that at the end of the day, like you are choosing to be a part of our winery by buying our product. Right. And I think that's really, important kind of feeling, make sure people feel appreciated at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love how you put that. The luxury is more about how you feel, right? And how you make the people feel that are buying the wine and experiencing your wine. And it's really, I mean, when you look at marketing, like that's the reason that people come back and want to be interested, right? You want to feel that connection with the people you're supporting and purchasing from. So that's perfect. Yeah. Okay, well, we better taste this. I've been watching Sidney drink this delicious red wine. I'm like, I definitely need to give this a taste. Nothing wrong with that. So this is yours. This looks like your red blend index, the red wine blend. So you want to tell us a little bit more about, what are the grapes that went into this?
Standard 5. We got Cab, Merlot, Cab Dominant, Merlot, Malbec, Petit Verdot, Cab Franc.
Okay. Smells really
Yeah, and
lovely.
the name Index is a play on the file, which all of our labels has the file. And so like, it's very clean, modern, minimalistic, but at the same time, like there is a little bit more of a thought process kind of behind it, right? Index kind of plays into that theme. And I think Sidney and I are, like we'll agree that most Washington wine blends like was all the crap that that winemakers didn't really want to put into wines and just kind of leftovers. And so there's a little bit of a stigma behind blends, but like, at the end of the day, our best wines are blends, right? And having someone that can make the blends like Billow does, like that is, it's a science. It's a pretty special thing to be able to kind of do. And so this got bottled in June, so it's just a baby. We're going to release to our wine club in middle of October, and it'll be our Sauvignon Blanc, our Cabernet, and our Index, our high end red blend. And this is it's a beautiful, beautiful wine, but can age this can go a long, long, long time.
Yeah, I first sip, I was already like, it's amazing that it has that beautiful like red and black fruit to it. I think it has a nice like undercurrent of like that little bit of green pepper that you would get from Cab Franc and Cabernet Sauvignon, where it's got a little bit of that herbal note to it that basically to me tells me that like, yes, while I'm getting the fruit now, this wine has, it can stand the test of time. It'll be great in 20 years and it'll hold that to it. It is a really lovely, lovely wine.
It's again very well balanced.
Yes.
Very elegant, well balanced wine.
I think it's one that can like, I love a good wine. And I think all three of the wines, especially, but I thought about it, especially with the white and the red, that like you could drink this on its own easily. You don't have to pair it with food. It really just is like, it just makes you feel good when you drink it. Right. And then, but at the same time, you could easily find some food that would match really well with it.
We know we drink it both ways, without food, with food, whatever.
Yes, absolutely. And I couldn't agree more, Tim, when you said about the blends being some of the best. I think people look down on. I'm very much ready to dispel that myth of like blends are not inferior. It's really like that ability to like take the best of all the grapes, right? The best qualities and, have each of those shine in the glass. And when, the Cabernet Sauvignon might be missing some of this, so you get to add a little Merlot and a little Malbec and Cab Franc to get, like Sidney said, that perfectly balanced wine.
Each one of those varietals in that blend by themselves, we could sell, as their own bottle. And like at some point, like we'll probably do like when like a Petit Verdot comes in, like amazing, or Cab Franc comes in amazing. We'll probably do like a small, like little club project, kind of to say like, hey, here's some, Cab Franc, because people enjoy kind of having those single varietal type of, things, but like by themselves, they're amazing, but put into a blend, it's even crazier.
Absolutely. Like the best shines from each. Okay, so we've tasted all the wines. I think I've made it through my questions. I've kept you guys long enough. I just have my last little speed round. So all it is going to be, it's just going to be it's going to be 5 quick questions on kind of your favorite. And the idea of the speed round just being like, don't feel like you need to think about it too much. It's just the first thing that pops into your head, because otherwise these questions might be a little bit more challenging if you think too much. So I'll start off. What is your favorite wine at the moment?
That's a big question, because if I could afford it and pour it all the time, it would it would be something from a first growth, but that's not the case. For our wines, I absolutely love the Viognier. It's my go-to whenever I want something nice with a little complexity. I'll just go to the fridge and grab a Viognier from ours. If I were to go anywhere else, it would probably be some sort of red Burgundy.
Ooh, great answer. I like that. Okay. All right. You're up, Tim.
Okay. Of ours right now, I think the one I'm most excited about is our Sauvignon Blanc that we just bottled. It's tied with our high end. We call it our Halo projects, and that hasn't even been released. It's not even going to be released for another like 6 months. But we did bottlings of both those, and but that Sauvignon Blanc from last year, which we sold out of, is even better just because of the better fruit that we're getting. And it's incredible. Right. And so that's $42 for a bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. Mm-hmm. And that'll be gone here in the next couple of months. So outside of that, right now, we had Sidney's birthday recently, and we had some old, some Moutons, that were there. But I mean, if I was to say, I mean, like my original one was, like the Dominus. I love Dominus. But right now, I love Vega Sicilia. I love with what they do. I love, with what wines are putting out, and they seem the most close to like kind of who, the style that we're making right now with their wines.
Cool. Okay. I like it. All right. Now, next question is favorite wine region that you've ever visited?
Sydney's traveled more than I have, on
I've traveled a ton, but I wasn't really into wine, so I'm gonna have to go with Napa.
Napa. Yes. It's famous for a reason, right?
Yeah, Napa's a close second. Walla Walla's first.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, Napa's cool. I think that just the restaurants that you can enjoy in the evening time, and just like the overall package, I think is great. I think Oregon has got some amazing, incredible wines. They just don't have that evening time to kind of be able to go relax and feel like it's just a little bit more elevated experience. And they've got some stuff that's amazing, but not to the scale of Napa, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you on the other side of the coin, what's a wine region you'd like to visit?
For me, Champagne, hands down. I was supposed to go earlier this year, didn't make it out, but it's definitely on the list, and I definitely will be going.
Nice. Okay. All right, Tim.
I would say Bordeaux for sure.
Ooh, okay. Great answers. We got some French wine fans here. All right. Favorite wine and food pairing?
Oh, damn.
I know I told you, don't think too hard.
No. I think the one that always like angers me more than anything is like with when they like with a red wine, they're like, well, steak goes great with this, right? And it's like, well, come on, like think a little bit deeper than that, right?
Yeah, that's fair.
But like we've had like our Viognier will go like like with scallops, like our Viognier with scallops is insane.
I can
or like
see that.
crab or something along those lines. Like that's a pretty. I mean, I don't eat a ton of meat anymore these days, but like that's a great pairing.
Probably
Okay.
with some Kushi oysters.
Ooh, okay. I like the Sauvignon Blanc pick. I usually go for like either a Champagne or Albarino, but I could see Sauvignon Blanc really being really good with that.
You just gotta drink our Sauvignon Blanc. You haven't tried it yet.
That's
true.
I mean, I definitely drink champagne with it or anything else. I'm like Tim. I don't think it matters if you find something that you can pair. I definitely do the classic, a lighter red blend with a steak or some short rib, something like that.
Yes. Oh, that sounds good too. Okay. All right. Okay. Last question. And this is more for like, we're going to that, the budget friendly world. So think back before you have all these really nice wines, right? What would you say? Like if you're at the grocery store, and you're looking for something under $15, right? What do you think is like the most reliable? What do you reach for?
When I first started, I think it was around. It's not quite 15. It was $18. $18, and it was a pessimist. I think it's Dow makes it.
Oh,
I'm sure
okay.
it's more expensive now, but it was literally around $18, and that was my go-to red wine. It was a really nice one.
Okay. I like it. Tim?
Back in the day when we were working at the restaurant, there was we could buy the wines at wholesale, and what we would do is we'd buy Gruner Veltliner by the liter bottle for $8.99 and had a pop top. And that to me is always, when I find like a liter bottle of Gruner Veltliner in the grocery store, there's a little bit of a flashback for me of when I was 22 years old drinking Gruner Veltliner by the liter bottle. So that to me is, I love Gruner Veltliner. It's a fun wine to try. It's easy drinking, and that's my go-to.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Gruner's a great one, especially you can get some great bottles under 15. Wonderful. Okay, well, that is everything I have. Is there anything else you guys want to share about Dossier before I let you go?
I think Tim touched on it. We're planning on opening the tasting room, having it ready for fall release. So hopefully we see a lot of people out there for it.
Absolutely. And if people want to, I guess I should ask too, if people want to drink your wines, give them a try. What's the best way for them to get a hold of the wine?
Call Tim on his cell phone. DossierWine.com. We're direct to consumer right now. If you're in Walla Walla, it's a couple of bottles at the Thief. Yeah.
Great.
There's a handful of restaurants here in town that have them, but would love for people to be able to and follow us on social media, Dossier Wine. That's a great way to stay in touch with the different events. And then, we've got those events where we'll be able to taste the wines and get people to kind of connect with us. And that's a super fun thing for us. So if you do head to our website and you do want to try any of the wines, I think we are with our marketing gal. We've got Cork and Fizz specific promo code. So it's Cork Fizz, FIZZ, and that should basically, with any 3 bottles or more, give you complimentary shipping on any of the bottles that you get. So, but reach out. We're super responsive on any of that stuff. And if you're in town in Walla Walla or want to do an in-home tasting here in Western Washington, that's a huge thing that we do for up to 25 people.
Wow, and that's a fun experience.
Yeah, and honestly, that's where we've seen the most engagement is with, because people want to be able to feel more comfortable in their houses, but they want to have their friends over, and it feels like a really intimate experience. We bring all the different wines for people to try, and it's a really, really cool, just a different type of environment that otherwise you'd have to drive out to Walla Walla or Woodinville to do at the end of the day.
Right. Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me, taking the time to chat. Really loved learning more and absolutely loved getting to try these wines. I will be very much looking more into these. They're absolutely delicious.
Thank you. Enjoy them.
Thank you. Cheers.
All right, take care.
Hope you enjoyed this episode of the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. If it wasn't obvious during the interview, Dossier's wines truly are incredible, and I couldn't recommend them enough. The 3 wines I tasted were the 2021 Viognier, the 2022 Rosé of Syrah, and the 2021 Index Red Blend. All 3 truly were amazing, and I'd recommend them along with anything else that you find on Dossier. You can purchase their wines from their website, dossierwine.com, DOSSIER wine.com, and use code CORKFIZZ, that's CORKFIZZ, for free shipping on 3+ bottles. The code is good through the end of October 2023. If you loved this episode as much as I did, I'd love it if you could take a quick second to rate it and leave a review. And if you know a wine lover in your life that would enjoy this, please share it with them. It would mean the world to me and Dossier. In next week's episode, I'll be sharing another installment of my Grape Deep Dive series. And this time we'll be talking about one of my favorite white wines, Chenin Blanc. Thanks again for listening, and if you want to learn more about wine, come follow me at Cork and Fizz on Instagram. And if you're interested in exploring new wines and joining an incredible community of wine lovers, be sure to sign up for my virtual tasting club, The Cork Crew. Use code WINE101 to get your first month absolutely free. Cheers!